10 years since Batman Arkham Knight.
My God, has it been that long?
This is long overdue. I wanted to try to get this out this past summer, but now that we're in the heart of Halloween, given that this game takes place on Halloween night, let's have at it. Set 9 months after the events of Arkham City, where Batman confronts Scarecrow, who's about to launch a chemical attack on Gotham, uniting all of the supervillains in the city to destroy him once and for all. Saying that out loud makes me think, well, you kind of did that in Arkham Origins. But this is basically that plot element 100-fold. But in the midst of all that, Batman is forced to confront some deep-seated fears that he's been worrying about for a long time. With spoilers and all, let's get right to Batman Arkham Knight. For anyone who's new to my channel, I am a big fan of the Arkham series, along with the Insomniac Spider-Man games. We'll see how the third game turns out. It's some of the best adaptations of a superhero property in entertainment, particularly in the video game realm. Arkham Asylum in 2009 was a huge surprise. 2 years after, with Arkham City, I was completely blown away. Then Arkham Origins in 2013 was actually pretty good too, even though a lot of people felt very lukewarm about it. The reception was positive, not quite on the same level as its predecessors. And rather than just reskin what happened in Arkham City, they go full bore, not just with the storytelling, but also the gameplay. Just like Arkham Origins was set on Christmas Eve, this one is set on Halloween night. If you're going to include a Batman nemesis that would fit in that holiday feel, it's gotta be the Scarecrow. Different voice actor compared to who they had in Arkham Asylum back in the day, but he's still eerie and terrifying, voiced by the one and only John Noble, who you might know as Denethor from the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and he's also in the show Fringe, which I have not watched. And we have some familiar faces returning for their parts, the late Kevin Conroy as Batman Bruce Wayne, Troy Baker returns as Harvey Dent Two-Face, and believe it or not, he's also the voice of the Arkham Knight. And Nolan North as the Penguin, and even Ashley Greene, Alice from Twilight, as the voice of Barbara Gordon. I remember very specifically back in 2014, early 2015, and being so curious as about what they were going to do with Batman and what was going on with him after the events of Arkham City. Because clearly there's a deep connection between him and the Joker that he's not really comfortable with knowing about. And it all comes into play in this game in a very surprising way that I still, 10 years later, get so enthralled by. Being a Batman fan, of course, this is going to be number one on my list in many ways, as far as at the time when it was coming out to get my hands on it. And this was the end of the Arkham series, which was really bittersweet. And I still want to see more from this universe. I know there's the Suicide Squad stuff that happens where it's in the same universe as the Arkhamverse. Now, the previous games do have moments where you feel like this universe is lived in. This one takes it to a whole nother level. Now, the city's been evacuated, and all that's left are Batman, the criminals, the police, and Scarecrow, and the militia led by the Arkham Knight. But there is a sense of liveliness going on throughout the city where all the remaining people are walking around causing all this chaos. The militia and the cops are patrolling the streets and at times are clashing with each other. And it's surprisingly very atmospheric. It rains throughout the game. There's all this overcast over the city. Seeing the details of the raindrops on the ground, the buildings, Batman's costume, and other people. I mean, I recognize that it's a video game, but it all feels, to me anyway, very realistic. Just like the first Last of Us game managed to capture 2 years prior to this. And the sound design, especially compared to the other games, is top-notch, particularly with the Batmobile. When you hear that sound after you call the Batmobile, I have to admit, I do get kind of excited even after all this time. And I guess we're gonna have to go right into the gameplay, because the gameplay is basically everything we saw from the previous games on steroids. We have the combat, which involves a lot of button mashing, and the flow and how Batman just goes from one person to the other. Given the heightened reality of this universe, this is very comic book inspired. It feels like how Batman in this universe would move around countering all these opponents. And it also makes sense as to how he's able to move around freely and quickly in his costume that he upgrades in order to use the multi-fear takedown. But you gotta time it exactly right in order to do that. I mean, you have to do this sort of training in order to access a certain area. And you have to sneak around and take out these guys with silent takedown so you can boost up the amount of times you need to use the fear multi takedown. And that all comes down to how much points you gain throughout the game when you complete certain missions in certain areas. Segueing into Batman's tech, there's a lot more options to consider with this one. Again, you have to earn more points as you complete more of the story. You have the explosive gel, you have the batarang, you have the crypto sequencer hacking into the malicious drone devices, which you can use to turn on them. You can even cause the Zeppelins by Simon Stagg to tilt a certain way, left to right, in order to cause some objects to crash through windows so you can get out of there. There's also the electric charge gun that you pick up from the GCPD lockup, listening to a voice explanation from Aaron Cash saying hopefully Batman won't ask for this back. But then you crash through the display, and at least I do anyway, and you can take it with you. I like to go right for the throat on that situation as soon as I first get into the GCPD. That way I don't have to worry about it later on, because I'd like to try to get a head start at least on how much Riddler trophies I can pick up. But then there's the grapnel boost part, part, which if you upgrade it just enough, you could send him soaring into the air, and you can fly for at least maybe 30 seconds to about 60 seconds. I guess for myself, similar to a Spider-Man game where you just swing around New York, a Batman game I think kind of lives or dies by that, you flying around in the air or driving in the Batmobile. There were quite a few times where I just wanted to fly around and not give a crap about what was going on in the streets below. As for the other tech upgrades, you can obviously upgrade your armor with your Batsuit. You can also upgrade your tech by how many shots you can take with your Disruptor, which is also a very, very helpful thing to use. Like in certain situations when you encounter the militia with their watchtowers or their road barriers on the streets of Gotham, they have their medics, which are dressed in white, and if you aim it at just the right spot with their medical pack, and when they go to help somebody that's knocked down, it'll cause an electrical charge in their hand, shocking them unconscious. It took a few times for me to play the game to catch on to that, because at a certain point I was going, why do they keep getting back up? And I realized that they had the medic there, and I thought, oh, that's why. So I said, rule of thumb, Joe, go for the medic first, so you don't have to worry about any more later. Then there's the infamous Batmobile. I have somewhat of a love-hate relationship with the Batmobile in this game, but for starters, I love driving around it, feeling like you could do anything, but I'm not really used to driving in video games, and even now, 10 years later, this is still an adjustment for me, particularly in the Riddler racetracks. We'll get to that later. You can also upgrade the tech on the Batmobile as well with the afterburner charge, the combat system, which you can turn into a tank and fire bullets at the militia drones or the tanks that are coming in. You can also fire rubber bullets at foot soldiers on the ground. Some people at the time made a big deal about that, but if you actually pay attention, they're riot bullets. They're not killing anybody. They're just gonna knock you into a mini coma. And it fits in with Batman's moral code. Yes, he's going to use brute force, but he's not going to kill anybody. Maybe not as much as I felt with flying around as Batman, but there were a few times where I just wanted to drive through the streets and just not even worry about the story points throughout the game. At least in my experience anyway. You actually feel like you're in the middle of this world, in the middle of Gotham. And the design of Gotham feels exactly how it would feel in the Batman comics. It's very gothic, but also has a modern flair to it. And we have the 3 islands in Gotham, making it feel like this really large place. Miagani Island, Founders Island, and I just looked it up, Bleak Island. I always forget that one. But the one neighborhood name that always gets me is in Founders Island, Otisburg.
Otisburg? Where's this monster? She's got her own place. Otisburg? It's a little bitty place. Otisburg?
Yeah, I'll never be able to disconnect those two. To go off something that I mentioned earlier with the militia medics, there's also some other stuff that they're able to use, like a cloaking device. When you turn on detective mode, you're obviously able to see enemy combatants throughout a certain area, but when they have a cloaking device on, you can't see them. Then of course some of them will have a signal disruptor which can jam Batman's detective vision. In order to see more clearly, you have to upgrade your tech in order to thwart that stuff. I think I might have only been able to do it once to upgrade to a certain level where I can see the people using the cloaking device. Most of the time, whenever they're in the area, I just turn off detective vision and I can see the glow on their uniforms from far away. Similar thing with the guys wearing the disruptor packs. Fighting the militia can be a challenge. In certain points throughout the story, when you diminish enough of their forces, a certain story point happens and they manage to regain control of the city with their watchtowers, their roadblocks, and the bombs that they have planted into the ground. You can use the Batmobile to upload a virus into the bomb in order to make it die with a controlled explosion. But once the virus goes in, all these tanks swarm in on you and you gotta fight them off. Those tank battles are not only repetitive in certain moments, but it is just exhausting. But also, if you're able to upgrade your tech to a certain point, you could fire multiple missiles on the tanks, wiping out a significant number of their forces. Then there's the stuff with the Riddler. He's kidnapped Catwoman and wrapped this bomb necklace around her neck. And if you complete certain areas, you're able to use a key in order to disarm the bomb. Some of those Riddler puzzles are actually kind of fun when you team up with Catwoman, and if you get enough points, you can use a dual team takedown to smash a robot to smithereens. Catwoman is underrated in this series. We saw a little bit of it in Arkham City. That is if you include her DLC in that game. But then the racetracks come in, and those are freaking frustrating as hell. The most annoying part of that is just the Riddler's continuous and relentless antagonistic behavior.
I realized, you see, that the kind of image-obsessed narcissist who places bat symbols on his hubcaps would never willingly submit himself to the kind of humiliation I have in store. Yet, here you are, detective.
Oh, for the love of God. Shut the hell up!
And just like with the previous games, you have to collect enough of the Riddler trophies in order to confront him once and for all. And when you finally do that, with Catwoman's help, catharsis doesn't even begin to describe it. But let's get into the story of Arkham Knight. As I stated earlier, this is set 9 months after the events of Arkham City. Things seem to be relatively calm in Gotham City, but there's something brewing underneath the surface that everybody's feeling that the sky's going to start to fall at some point soon, which is perfectly explained by Jim Gordon in his narration. And it doesn't take long after that for something to blow up. When this cop goes to a nearby diner to have some dinner, and this patron alerts him to somebody smoking in a nearby booth, and it turns out it's one of Crane's goons and launches a gas attack in the middle of the diner, causing people to turn on each other. Soon after that, Scarecrow announces his plan, causing Gotham City to be evacuated. It's important to note throughout this game that Batman is in a very different spot emotionally and psychologically. And I like that this game doesn't fully reveal it right away. It shows us the details as we go along in the story and how he continuously gets more and more psychologically worn down, and also physically. The death of the Joker in Arkham City clearly has had an effect on him. And I think we get the sense as the audience or the gamer that there's something that he's not telling anybody. There's a deep-seated fear that he's worried about all along ever since the Joker arrived in Arkham Origins all those years ago. That the two of them might actually not be that different from one another. To mention it off the bat, Batman is worried that he's just a monster like the Joker was. I have to say, listening to Kevin Conroy now, almost 3 years after he died, this was tough. And I know for a lot of Batman fans who grew up listening to him in the animated series from the 90s, playing this now I would imagine hits even harder. You don't need to hear me say this, but as far as voiceover for Batman, there is nobody else, nobody in this universe that can do it as good as he did. Not one delivery of dialogue feels inauthentic by Conroy. And a lot of that is also due to the creative team from Rocksteady, in particular the game director Sefton Hill, who was a co-writer for this game, along with some of the previous games in the series. This almost feels very cinematic, like it's mixed with what Chris Nolan could do with a Batman movie, along with the 90s Batman. Similar to how I think the Insomniac Spider-Man games felt like the 90s Spider-Man mixed in with the Raimi trilogy. Batman's got plenty of allies on his side, from the police and Commissioner Gordon and Aaron Cash. Tim Drake as Robin. Nightwing even shows up for a little bit. And of course his trusted butler Alfred. And since Oracle is in here, when I realized that it was Ashley Greene from Twilight voicing the character, initially I rolled my eyes because we were still somewhat fresh off of the Twilight series ending at the time. But at the time and even now, I still am surprised by her vocal performance. She is that good. And believe it or not too long ago in Philly, I actually met her at the Comic-Con there. Yeah, I know she's a Twilight actress, but the fact that she was in a Batman game, is that enough of a justification for you? Don't laugh at me. Just don't. Go ahead if you want to. But Batman is really put through the ringer in this one, and it all starts with Batman showing up at Ace Chemicals, where it all began for the Joker so many years ago. Learning that Scarecrow's about to blow up his toxin from that plant that's about to cover the entire eastern seaboard. Now, of course, we all know that Batman's going to survive this. It's very early on in the game, so we know that nothing bad's going to happen. Well, as far as him dying anyway. He manages to get most of the blast radius reduced to within the city limits, but then something happens where we find out what exactly has been bothering him.
Miss me? Can you hear me, Bruce? Oh, don't act all surprised, Bats. You knew this was going to happen sooner or later.
I know a few people felt this way, but that plot point was so surprising, but it felt so riveting. For some context, Batman is working on a cure for certain people who have the Joker blood mutating inside of them. If you remember from Arkham City, the Joker injected Batman with his infected blood, but we also learned that he spread out his blood to various hospitals across Gotham. Now, they managed to stop it, but something started to come up, where these people who were infected with Joker's blood started to act exactly like him.
We missed some.
How?
Hospital errors. Transfusions that went unrecorded. 5 people were affected. Untreated, the blood's gestated too long. It's altering them. They're becoming...
Joker. My God.
And then there's Henry Adams, who, well, looks like he's not infected, but that all turns south later on. Batman has a secret location in the Panessa movie studios in Gotham, which I guess you can say is an outpost of some kind outside of his Batcave. And the way Batman just sneaks up on him like that, I mean, there's a reason why horror doesn't really do it for me. It's because of stuff like that. Just the thought of these people turning into variants of the Joker, actually in a lot of ways more terrifying than the Joker himself, because his influence is still carrying on. But there's 5 cells, and it turns out one's missing, and Batman says he'll be here soon. But then we cut back to Batman right before the Ace Chemicals blows up. and we see the Joker haunting him, realizing that it was Mark Hamill. It looked like Mark Hamill had retired from the character for good. And hearing his voice, I thought, oh my god, he is back for one last hurrah. I know a lot of people are tired of the Joker being used in Batman stories, but there's a reason why he's his arch nemesis, because of the psychological effect that he has on Batman, showing that he's really not that different from him. They're just opposite ends of the spectrum. They're two sides of the same coin. We see throughout various portrayals of Batman where the Joker will talk crap to him from his perspective on what he knows about a certain situation to try to get in Batman's head. But the difference is the Joker in Batman's head knows everything that Bruce knows, and he uses that information to dig into him and break him down. And throughout this game, we see him put in various scenarios where he's kind of forced to confront his moral code and possibly break it. And the Joker's just relentlessly trying to take over his mind, playing into Batman's fear that he's a monster like the Joker was. One moment in particular that always gets me is when he's on Simon Stagg's airship and confronts the Scarecrow. And he has this moment where he actually kind of turns into the Joker.
Me, I'm amazing. And this body.
When he snaps out of it and he has this moment with Scarecrow.
You're trapped. There's nowhere to run.
The way Conroy delivers that line, it really emphasizes the point that Batman is legitimately freaked out right now, humanizing him in a way that we haven't really seen before. But you have that on top of Scarecrow kidnapping Barbara Gordon, causing Batman to go to this location in Chinatown, supposedly where she's being held, and we see her shoot herself in the head when she's dosed with Crane's fear toxin, seeing Batman as some sort of demon in her eyes anyway, due to the toxin. And the way they portray that death is so heartbreaking, and you feel Batman's pain. And it's the one moment where Batman can actually let go and let the Joker take over. But then he remembers something about Poison Ivy, who plays a crucial part in this story. It turns out she has the ability to counter Crane's toxin by using certain plants that are festering underneath the streets of Gotham. Simon Stagg is able to provide Scarecrow with the Cloudburst that's used as a way to disperse Crane's toxin into the air. Poison Ivy was one of the many antagonists you encounter in Arkham Asylum, but it's here that she's used as a crucial part in the plot to help defeat Scarecrow. I still get surprised by what they do with her here. I think the way she goes out in a heroic sacrifice to counter Crane's toxin for good, ironically, she turns out to be a hero that Gotham needed. And the way she just dissipates into dust, I guess the Arkham series was in a way predicting what Thanos would do in Infinity War. But to go on a sidebar, just like Poison Ivy's given a lot more focus in this one, the developers clearly wanted to use more obscure Batman villains in his mythos in order to give them a chance to shine in a way that most general audiences probably would never see them. Some of the notable ones do return. If you go to an alternate part of the mission select, Mr. Freeze comes back, Mad Hatter shows up, Ra's al Ghul and the League of Assassins come back, and so does Killer Croc. Mad Hatter has these cops locked into this car with this dynamite and this ongoing police siren that seemingly will never end. And you find yourself sucked into this book that the Mad Hatter has, which is a parody of Alice in Wonderland, but it also has these environments through a pop-up book feel that call back to all the various points in the Arkham series, from Asylum, City, and Origins. It's one of those things how this game kind of brings everything full circle. Then there's the League of Assassins who show up, with Ra's al Ghul literally on his last legs. But this also plays really well into the Halloween feel and how eerie it is when you sneak into the hospital to find Ra's al Ghul's body, and there's some sort of civil war going on between his personal guard and the other League of Assassins who've broken away. Now, the way this wraps up, you can either resuscitate him or you can kill him. If you resuscitate him, his daughter Nyssa will die, and Nyssa wants to put her father out of his misery. Ultimately, I make the decision to just kill him. Most of the time I can agree with Batman not killing anybody, but in this case, yeah, I do. Literally every time before I pull the plug, this line plays right through my head.
I won't kill you. But I don't have to save you.
Then there's the Mr. Freeze mission, whose wife is being taken hostage by the militia. Even if it's for just like a small part, Mr. Freeze being my favorite Batman villain, that's never a negative for me. His wife Nora actually wakes up from cryosleep, and she knows what he's turned into. What I actually kind of love, they have her decide that she doesn't need saving, nor does she want to be saved. She just wants to live, even if she doesn't have much time left. And yet another example of an incredibly difficult tank battle with the militia. Nora and Batman are constantly trying to get Victor to blow up the ship in order to destroy all the militia forces. I even find myself saying, Victor, blow it up. Victor, do it! Do it! Then there's the Killer Croc, who's on this floating prison in the sky. Also another eerie feeling, given that it's Halloween. Killer Croc is a tragic villain. I mean, just imagine him growing up the way he looked. You know how kids can be in school. He's being held in the floating prison called Iron Heights, and it turns out the warden on the ship is using extreme methods of torture. With the help of Nightwing, you're not only able to subdue Killer Croc, but also bring the guards and the warden to justice. I just looked it up. That side of the gameplay is called City of Fear. If you complete a certain amount of the game, you're able to access those missions. But to go back into the main storyline, there's other villains that this game delves into. Firefly, who was briefly seen in Arkham Origins, but does have somewhat of an integral part, that he's causing all these fires to go on throughout the city. Again, chasing him in the Batmobile was so freaking hard. Then Two-Face is also around, where you encounter him in certain banks throughout the city that he and his goons are robbing. Hearing the voiceover from Troy Baker going from Harvey to Two-Face, I know a lot of people would think he's overexposed by now, but the guy is freaking incredible. Sue me. But then there's Man-Bat, also another spooky feel for Halloween. And also a tragic villain like Mr. Freeze's, although maybe in certain portrayals not as much. But he wants to mix vampire bat DNA into his blood to cure his incoming deafness. That's not gonna end well. And of course they have to use a jump scare in order to introduce you to him. Why do they always use jump scares? But the difference is, this is actually an effective one and not just some sort of stupid gimmick. In order to make him a human being again, you have to inject him with the formula 3 times. I gotta tell you, when he finds out that he accidentally killed his wife, I really hope and pray that they do him in the movies one day. But I mentioned Professor Pig, who is a serial killer. Throughout the city, you can find these bodies that are strung up like this, sort of like a crucifixion, with this really creepy opera music that's playing nearby. You could scan certain parts of their body to see some sort of deformity or some piece of metal or whatever that's planted in their bodies as a way to identify them. And as it goes on, we start to learn that they were kidnapped in certain areas, like a recreational park, an amusement park, where a circus was going on nearby. Laszlo Valentine was running the circus, deforms them physically to try to perfect them.
Pig is like clay. Pig is like a god. Pig is here to fix us all.
You're sick, you know that? You're really sick.
But then there's also the inclusion of Hush, who kind of sneaks in unexpectedly, kidnapping Lucius Fox at Wayne Tower. Also another ally that Batman has at his disposal. I love the character of Lucius Fox, whether it's in the movies, the shows, or the games. And I like it when he knows that Bruce Wayne is Batman. When it's pretty clear that he reveals his identity, neither here nor there. But at certain points you have to go to Wayne Tower in order to upgrade your tech and get certain pieces of equipment from Lucius Fox. But when you find out from Alfred that he hasn't been in contact for a while, you can go in to investigate, and seemingly Bruce Wayne walks into the building trying to access his computer, but then he takes Lucius Fox hostage, and it turns out it's Thomas Elliot, Bruce's childhood friend, who wants to get back at Bruce Wayne for being wronged by him. And it turns out he killed his parents in a car accident, wanting to take all their money. But Bruce's father, Thomas Wayne, who was a doctor, was able to save his mother, preventing him from getting what he wanted. Another villain that I would like to see them do in the movies at some point, and I think, if I'm guessing correctly, Matt Reeves might actually use Hush in the sequel to The Batman in a few years. Also, how he reveals his identity to Tommy. That's one example of a few others that just makes me think, oh my god, you went for it. Because normally I think some stories like that would attempt some sort of cop-out where they don't have to reveal their identity. But no, he just takes off his mask and says, alright, Tommy, I'm gonna give you what you want. Take your shot. This mixture of villains that are either familiar or more obscure, I like that this game is not afraid to go for the throat and take a leap of faith of including as many of these people as possible. That being said, it does get kind of messy, even though this is a video game, so you have a lot more time to cover certain areas. But if I have to pick apart some pieces of this game, I feel like with the amount of villains in here, even for a video game, I think it's kind of stretching itself a little too thin. Just a little bit. Then there's the inclusion of Harley Quinn, who wants to get her hands on the 3 or 4 Joker people that have been infected with his blood. So we take off as Batman to help Robin, Tim Drake, and bring back all the Joker-infected people. And it's in this section where we see flashbacks to the death in the family, the death of Jason Todd, the second Robin. Seeing the Joker torture him, getting it on camera, it's just this unsettling feeling, and we see how it deeply affected Bruce Wayne. You add that on top of the death of the Joker, and the death of Barbara Gordon, or at least it's revealed not to be. I really like seeing this, and I think that it's similar to how Spider-Man feels about Gwen Stacy, where this character is clearly going to have an effect on Bruce Wayne, not in the same way that his parents did on him initially in order to make him the heroic figure that he is. Whereas with Spider-Man, it's with Uncle Ben. But whenever he snaps out of those flashbacks and Tim asks him if he's okay, I'm fine, Tim. Let's go. You haven't done that for a while. So inevitably they bring all the people back into the control room, and it turns out that Henry Adams is symptomatic, and he was using it as a front in order to sneak Harley Quinn into the building, killing all the remaining infected, and then we see that Batman's actually infected, and that last remaining cell is for him. This is probably my biggest issue with the game, because if you remember from Arkham City, he drank enough of that antidote to cure him, but somehow it's ineffective and he's turning into the Joker. I can let it slide if it's really just about him worrying that he's not that different from the Joker, but clearly he took enough of that cure, so how exactly is that still festering inside of him? But just when he has an opportunity to lock himself away, he throws Drake into the cell and locks him away, deciding to go on his own and face the Arkham Knight and Scarecrow. Also, another thing that I mentioned with the messiness of it all, when the cloudburst explodes, I don't really think there's a need to have it blow up like that when most of the city's been evacuated. If you did it in the beginning of the game, maybe I'd be able to buy that. I guess it would be a little more problematic to navigate through the streets, random thugs that are just gonna take cover and be too busy fighting each other or eating each other. These civilized people, they'll eat each other. Oh my god, what is the matter with me? It's a long night, guys. Just bear with me. Having mentioned that, this feels like different elements of the Dark Knight trilogy melded into one. Chris Stuckman talked about this in his original review 10 years ago. Scarecrow's plan to infect the city with his toxin is just like in Batman Begins, with the help of Ra's al Ghul in there as well. The Joker's psychologically tormenting Batman just like he did in The Dark Knight, and the militia versus the police controlling the streets of Gotham, just like Bane's army in Dark Knight Rises going up against the cops and the people that resist. Seeing the militia controlling the streets in this game, it also feels kind of relevant for what's going on right now in certain areas of the country. But it turns out that Jim Gordon was taken hostage by Scarecrow. Batman manages to track him down into Arkham Knight's headquarters. After he manages to outrun him in the Batmobile in the tunnels deep down with this big excavation device that the Arkham Knight's driving around. And inevitably, when he finds Gordon, the Arkham Knight confronts him, and then we find out his identity. Jason Todd. I avoided talking about the Arkham Knight, but let's say that I don't mind the Arkham Knight. I know a lot of people find him annoying from it's not exactly how it is in the comics because he's initially Red Hood, and he ends up turning into the Red Hood later on. But for a while, up until a certain point when you're in the tunnels trying to outrun Arkham Knight, the first time I played this, I was wondering, who the hell is this guy? How does he know who he is? I don't know about anybody else, but I think deep down, Batman might know who he is. But he's also, I think, in denial, because he has Alfred search through all these different databases to try to determine Arkham Knight's identity. And all those searches come up short. Like at one particular spot when you go through the tunnels to try to find Ivy's plant.
Master Bruce, my sincerest apologies, but my search for the Arkham Knight's identity has proved fruitless.
Nothing?
I have a short list of candidates we cannot fully eliminate, but no, I have no likely suspects.
Shift focus to former Arkham staff. Hugo Strange had ulterior motives. Quincy Sharp was unstable.
Are you saying the Arkham Knight is a co-conspirator looking to finish their work?
Exactly.
At the time I thought, okay, I could probably buy that. But then Arkham Knight says this in the tunnel before he destroys the Batmobile.
You think Crane found Oracle on his own? I'm the one who told him about Barbara. Me! I told you I knew everything about you, didn't I? Don't worry, Bruce. I kept some secrets to myself.
At that point I thought, oh, that's why they showed the flashbacks from Death in the Family. It's so obvious now, it's Jason Todd. But a part of me said, no, let's just wait and see. And then...
Through you, Bruce. Jason. But you're dead.
Let's not fall out here, Bats.
This whole confrontation is just so raw. Even though there's no big boss battle, you have to sneak around in order to subdue Jason Todd. This moment where he could easily beat Jason into submission, hearing him apologize to Jason is just so heartbreaking. You can clearly tell that Jason still haunts him to this day. And it even kind of reminds me of what Obi-Wan does to Anakin in the Kenobi series, trying to hold on to some sort of hope that his friend can come back. And real quick, in that area where you can uncover certain riddles left by the Riddler, you see this picture in this area with a knife sticking through the picture of Batman and Robin on the roof. Only illustrates further how much hatred Jason has for Bruce. But then Batman rescues Jim Gordon as they head up to the roof and offers his apologies for what happened to Barbara. Easily reminds me of the "A hero can be anyone" monologue in The Dark Knight Rises. And some variations Jim Gordon does know deep down that Bruce is Batman. Other times he's just so oblivious or just doesn't even care simply who Batman is. Inevitably, he's got to think when he sees Batman, okay, somebody with a lot of resources would be able to afford that kind of tech to be Batman. And the only one who could possibly do that is Bruce Wayne. But they get to the roof and confront Scarecrow. And it turns out Barbara Gordon's alive.
Dad!
Barbara, are you all right?
She's alive! I am kind of confused by how she's somehow still alive. Because whenever you go back to Chinatown, you see her dead body. Maybe that's all still up in his head? Or maybe it was a decoy? I don't know. What's the difference? She's still alive. But you're able to bring her back in your new Batmobile, and after certain things you have to do in order to secure the clock tower, and then fighting off the militia attacking the GCPD, it's revealed that Scarecrow has kidnapped Tim Drake. History is now starting to repeat itself. Batman has been keeping Tim at an arm's distance for a while, not wanting to go through the same thing that he went through with Jason. And once he realizes the error of his ways, he decides to turn himself into Scarecrow and goes to Arkham Asylum, where it all began in the series a long time ago. And as follows some of the most riveting storytelling that I've ever seen in a video game in my life. Batman's brought to the asylum. Batman has to reveal his identity to the world, as Scarecrow is broadcasting this to everybody else. I know I'm using my reenactment stuff a lot in this game, but I'm just trying to emphasize how it felt when I first played this back then. Right up until that reveal, I thought, there's no way. No. You have to have some sort of fake out. Right? Right? What Scarecrow really wants to accomplish, not just spreading his fear toxin, but show the world that the man behind the mask is just a scared boy. Also playing into Bruce's fears that he's just a coward and a monster just like the Joker is. And when Crane injects him with that toxin, this follows the most trippiest sequence I've ever witnessed in a video game. The Joker has been antagonizing Batman throughout this game, and throughout the story he gets more physically and emotionally worn down. And we see all the Batman villains in this one room with the Joker on some sort of gurney, and this Joker mobile shows up. He gets in and wipes out all the thugs that are firing at him. Again, first time I played this back in the day, I remember thinking, what the hell is happening? Is he actually killing people? You take a shot at Penguin, the Riddler, which is actually kind of cathartic for me because of how much he drives me crazy. And he shoots Two-Face, which when he looks back down, it's Jim Gordon saying, please don't do this. Shh. Goes out into the street of Gotham City, seeing all this chaos and fiery explosions erupting, and it looks like the Joker has assumed control for good over Bruce Wayne. And Scarecrow injects him with more fear toxin, which awakens a fear that the Joker has. And as we go throughout these certain catacombs or these dark hallways, we see a statue of the Joker that's being overgrown by the wildlife, Harley being the only one to attend his funeral, a radio broadcast where the guy being interviewed doesn't remember the Joker or acts like the interviewer's talking about somebody else. The Joker's biggest fear is that he'll be forgotten by the world. And trying to find Batman throughout all this, it's basically how I think all these thugs feel when they're trying to navigate certain areas to avoid getting caught by Batman. All these Batman statues start to pop up, and when you get to this certain area, I swear to God, last night I tried to close my eyes, or at least close them up to where I can still kind of see, but whenever they start to pop up, and when the Batman just pops out like that, no joke, as I played this last night, I jumped in my seat and went, oh my God! So the Joker gets away for a little bit, but Batman shows up and reasserts control over him.
I am vengeance. I am the Knight. I am Batman.
Pardon the use of the word here, but fucking right. It took a while for me to figure this out, and Jeremy Johns mentioned this in his spoiler review back in the day. I think it's pretty clear that the Joker did take over Batman's mind, and they both fought psychologically, and ultimately Bruce Wayne reasserts control and wins. And when Batman finally comes to, he's saved by the Red Hood, Jason Todd, and injects Crane with his own serum.
Taste of your own medicine, Doctor.
What's wrong? Scared? So Batman turns in Scarecrow to the GCPD and, for one last night, decides to be Batman and tells Alfred to prepare the Nightfall Protocol, using the name Martha as voice confirmation. Kind of made me laugh knowing that we heard that name mentioned in Dawn of Justice, but seeing how it's in honor of his mother, That's actually kind of beautiful. So inevitably, when you activate the Nightfall Protocol, he arrives at Wayne Manor, the media's all outside waiting for him, and as soon as he and Alfred enter the building, the whole place goes up, and it's safe to assume that Bruce Wayne died. And then we get the feeling that some time has passed. Things seem to be okay in Gotham for a while, but then in a similar fashion with Bruce's parents, this married couple and their child get stopped by muggers, and they notice this figure on a nearby rooftop who's emulating some sort of smoke from his cape or whatever, and they get attacked by this new myth, this new type of Batman, who I guess is still Bruce Wayne. I don't think it's really a big surprise. Even before all the Suicide Squad game stuff that has come out recently, I knew deep down that Bruce Wayne wasn't dead, because now his identity is exposed to the world. He can't do it the same way. I mean, I'm all for the stuff in Dark Knight Rises when he gets a happy ending. But in this situation, I think it's perfectly okay. And he even says to Catwoman when he saves her from the Riddler,
Gotham needs something more, something worse to defend her. She needs a new myth. A legend more powerful than I can be right now. A legend that can only rise from the ashes of the Batman.
Also, I have to mention his farewell to Nightwing as they defeat the Penguin. Again, a very bittersweet feeling. And this whole game in so many ways feels very bittersweet. I haven't played the Suicide Squad games. I've seen some clips of it where Batman shows up. And from what one of you guys have told me, it actually kind of tarnishes the ending of Arkham Knight. I don't even have the energy to go into that. And I haven't played it, so I can't comment. But I really do like this ending. And I like that it's pretty clear in a way, while also being ambiguous at the same time. That Bruce Wayne is still alive, but he's using Crane's fear toxin to strike fear into his opponents. That way, not as much crime will be present on the streets. There's always going to be a need for a guardian of some kind for the city, a watchful protector, a Dark Knight. But it also protects his allies, Tim, Barbara, Jim, and Dick Grayson. Whew, that was a lot of ground to cover. Thank you so much, guys, for bearing with me. There's a lot of other people who could talk about this better than I can, and I've tried my best to talk about this game in the way that makes sense to me, but Batman Arkham Knight, I think, is probably the best entry in the series, and easily in my top favorite video games of all time. From the storytelling, the world building, the delving into Batman's psychological trauma with the Joker, his parents, his allies, the reveal of the Arkham Knight being Jason Todd, even if it's not 100% perfect, it adds a lot of layers of emotion for Batman to go through, and I'm all here for that. Oh my god, I completely forgot about Slade Wilson Deathstroke. Okay. It turns out he's the main leader of this militia along with the Arkham Knight. And once you eliminate all of the militia forces, you can encounter him in his tank. And that, for me, is probably my other biggest problem. There is no boss battle, and the Batmobile is kind of used... No, actually, it is used as a crutch. There's no big boss fight between Batman and Arkham Knight, and the only time we see Batman fight Slade Wilson in this series is in Arkham Origins. As far as a physical match, there's nobody else other than Slade Wilson. And when he jumps out, just when you think there might be some hand-to-hand combat, knocks him out cold. But with the inclusion of Slade Wilson, I do like how this game does treat Arkham Origins as canon. Even with some of the issues I have, I still really love Arkham Knight. And even now, after all this time, I still get such a thrill out of it. So that's all I have for you guys on Batman Arkham Knight. Thank you so much for watching. Comment below and tell me what your thoughts are on this game. Hit the like and subscribe button if you'd like to see more from me. And as always, see you in the next one.